In 2003, lightning killed a giraffe at the Walt Disney World theme park in Florida. This is just one of the cases recorded worldwide. Their long neck and anatomy could make these mammals more vulnerable to these celestial projectiles, at least according to what one would expect. The data, however, are not very clear. In 2016, Norwegian authorities said that hundreds of reindeer had been discovered dead on Norway's Hardanger-Vidda Plateau after local thunderstorms. The leading theory at that time was that the animals were struck and killed by lightning. Alternative theories suggest death could have come from a previous disease or due to shock resulting from a nearby lightning strike. Professor Volker Hinrichsen said lightning usually has several points of contact. You may have different strike points in a radius of 0.6 miles. That may explain why a group of animals can be hit. Also, when lightning terminates on the ground, very high currents have to flow, for example 200,000 amps. And if the electrical conductivity of the ground isn't good, the current will flow very tightly to the surface. That means we'll have so-called step voltage along the surface of the ground. You can measure voltage differences between different points on the ground, wherever you step. So if you take a big step, you have a voltage difference between 2 points that are, say, 80 centimeters apart. The current will then mainly flow through 2 parts of our bodies, our 2 legs and abdomen, but it doesn't flow through our heart. That is totally different with animals. Animals have wider steps, maybe 1.5 or 2 meters wide, so the step voltage is much higher. The current, if it flows through the front and back legs, will always flow through the animal's heart. So the risk of death is much higher for animals during such an event. In case of summer storms, beyond the liters per square meter they pour out, one of the factors that intimidates us the most is the electricity they are capable of generating, and which manifests itself in the form of thunderous sounds and luminous snakes, in addition to the dreaded fires they can cause. Thousands of storms occur daily in the world and around 8 million of these electrical projectiles. And it is that, although the deaths of animals or people caused by lightning are not abundant, it is a real danger from which humans can protect themselves as far as possible, not like wild fauna, which is found almost always defenseless, especially when it comes to large specimens such as giraffes. With their long neck, you might think they have more chances than anyone to get a good shock, but is there any truth in this idea? Between 1996 and 1999, 2 of the 3 giraffes in the Krugersdorp Rhinoceros and Lion Nature Reserve in South Africa died after being struck by lightning. The third specimen, a young individual, also suffered the consequences of the meteorological phenomenon, but survived. In 2003, a giraffe at the Disney World theme park in Florida, named Betsy, died from the same cause as her southern counterparts, as did Hamley, another South African specimen who died after being hit by an electric projectile in 2010. The case Dusty, who lived at the Louisiana Center for Global Wildlife, was something different. She was crushed by a tree that was struck down by lightning. 2 giraffes died instantly in May 2019 when they were struck by lightning on a safari in Florida, in the southeastern United States, Lyon County Safari Park reported on Tuesday, June 11, 2019. Giraffes Lily, 10, and Gianni, 1, were killed on May 3 when a severe storm hit the Lyon County Safari, a park 80 miles north of Miami. The entire team here was devastated and we are still processing the loss weeks later, Haley Passisser, a spokeswoman for the safari, told local WPTV. He explained that the park has a lightning detection system, but that the animals live in natural habitats that mimic open spaces similar to those of a savanna. Because of this, if they choose not to take shelter, there is not much we can do to encourage them, Passisser said. However, despite the dozens of registered cases, the death data for these long necks does not exceed those of other animal species. Although due to the size of their body, and especially their neck, it seems logical to think that they are more vulnerable to electrical storms. Experts do not agree on whether they really are more likely to be struck by lightning than, for example, the elephants. Despite not being an academic document, Wikipedia reflects some of the factors that could lead to increased susceptibility. On the one hand, they are the tallest animals in zoos, which increases the risk of suffering the electric shock, something that is also repeated for individuals that live freely in the middle of the savanna, where their long neck protrudes above most trees and shrubs. The electrical engineer Chandima Gomez, from the University of Putra in Malaysia, has published a study, yes, a scientific one, on the risk that the rays suppose for the animals. In it, he warns that animals with a large separation between their front and hind legs are vulnerable to being injured by lightning due to the dangerous differences in potential that occur between both parties, so that electricity can travel through their internal organs. The scientist also points out that tall animals such as giraffes and elephants are more likely to be struck by lightning bounced off a tree. But even in zoos, giraffe deaths caused by storms can be counted on the fingers of one hand. When they have shelters adapted to their size, they usually hide from bad weather, and these facilities usually have taller buildings around them that would attract lightning. Thus, given the infrequency with which these types of accidents occur and the insufficient data available, it is difficult to determine whether or not giraffes are more vulnerable than other animals to electrical projectiles launched by storms. If you are in the wrong place and time, you are susceptible to it happening to you. It is not that giraffes stand up like lightning rods, says Julian Fennessy, conservation expert and member of the International Working Group for Giraffes of IUCN and co-founder of the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. According to Fennessy, the real threat to giraffes is humans, responsible for the loss of habitat of these mammals and their poaching. And here his neck and height have little to do.